Howdy, hi, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Well, we know what's happening in the city of Denver with the Hancock story, potential link to a prostitution ring. Did he, didn't he? More important to me, what about the media coverage? Well, to talk about all that, you know him, you love him. He's got an ugly voice on radio, but he's even uglier in person. Our good friend Pete Boyles, glad to have you.
Thank you. I haven't been here in a long time.
I know, I like the glasses.
Surf's up, let it look here.
Yeah. Tell you trying real hard.
Make the emergency phone call. I'm on my way over.
Yeah.
Wasn't canceled. I came in.
I like the glasses, by the way.
Barry Goldwater.
Yeah, my grandfather had those.
Well, you know, if I hang on to these, I'll come back. Actually, though, like Cary Grant had a pair like this, for real.
I'm sure he did.
He did. Barry Goldwater, Cary Grant. Let's see, who else?
Yeah, and Pete Boyles.
Oh, no. Buddy Holly.
Moving right along. From Complete Colorado, you know him, you love him, Todd Shepherd, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
Great to be here alongside Peter Boyles.
Yeah, you want to
welcome him back into the building.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
I thought the statute of limitations
I thought
ran out on me. I can come back
So
in
if
there.
Buddy Holly, then Roy Orbison too, right?
Roy Orbison, it's one word.
Roy Orbison.
Wow. Who's your favorite?
Cash didn't have anything like that, did he?
Johnny Cash. No, he didn't
All
wear
right,
glasses.
let's set the stage here. First of all, let's do a little full disclosure. This man over here who broke the story on Michael Hancock works for me at the Independence Institute. He also does a great little website called CompleteColorado.com. I'm proud of his work. I'm proud of his association with us. Tell me where you got the story before it happened. What caused you to get this story? And when you pulled the trigger on it Thursday night, that started an incredible chain reaction, which led to this guy pretty quickly.
Yeah, you know, the way the story came to me is really, it's something that I can't disclose because it's part of what corroborated what, you know, again, I had a source that showed me documents of this prostitution ring, essentially the customer log, and then appointment sheets. But the way in the chain of people as it worked its way to me is part of, I can't disclose those names because in essence they were able to disclose other key points of information that essentially corroborated everything that my source was ultimately going to tell me.
In a nutshell, you saw the logs that showed that one of the customers, it was reported on the log, we don't know if it's accurate or not, was Michael Hancock, and it had his cell phone number on it, and that was there at least 3 times.
At least 3 times, right? And again, you know, the cell phone is key because that, in essence, is that's like your account number with that prostitution ring. You never call up and just say, hey, it's Todd Shepherd, and I need it.
Trust me, when I go to a whorehouse, I always call up and say, hey, this is Todd Shepherd.
Right.
It works pretty well for me.
In essence, that was one of the early claims by Team Hancock, was that someone had done exactly that with his name, was that, you know, in order to protect themselves.
Framed him.
Yeah, that they...
But why you? You were not the first person this guy this guy gave information to. You're not the first guy that got information from a source or talked to other people. You were down the list. There were news,
Sure.
9, 7, 4, Fox, as well as the Post. Those are 5 other outlets that didn't run with it. Why?
Well, not only that, but the story did start many months earlier. You know, as after I broke the story, there were a lot of comments on Denver Post articles or on Westward articles that this had been furiously shopped in the 2 weeks preceding the election. I don't necessarily know that that's true. And what I do know for a fact is that the story started the November before. And now we even know that
Actually,
Deborah Sherman.
In 08.
In 08, right.
The story started in 08.
So, but to get to your answer, why me? Again, the sequence of people that led the story to me is key. And the other thing is, and again, this will get more into the conversation that we're about to have about other media sources, but my website does not have 20 lawyers that vet every story I ever put up.
Complete Colorado puts it on. You take it. I'm not surprised. Why did you? What?
We dialed the phone number.
You dialed the phone number on the log.
On the air, yeah.
And?
Michael Hancock's voicemail, his cell phone, he answered.
You went down and you looked through these records yourself.
No, I never saw the record.
You never saw the records? What did you see?
I was probably the last reporter to be asked to go. I was sitting on a guy's couch, and he said, "You're sitting right where Mike Litwin's at." And this is where Chuck Plunkett sat, and this is where their photographer came. And of course, at that time, they never admitted any of this. And, you know, I said it on the air, which caused me to be called the Know Nothing morning show host. But I was fascinated. I met someone on the street corner. This is for real, how it went down. They got in my car. I drove to this guy's house. Next night, it was robbed. But no,
In other words, you were casing the joint.
I called him up, and when he called me and told me he'd been robbed, I said, well, wipe down the place for prints. I mean, I don't want to be caught in here. I was taken over, sat on the couch, talked with him for probably 3 hours. And this time I asked, well, can I see the docs? And the person I was with had seen the docs and actually gave me some of the more powerful names on the list, told them to me, which is called, I guess, hearsay in courtrooms. And he said, no, they're all moved. They're out of here. And then the next night he was robbed. Well, he sent a mail to Patricia Calhoun, who I know sits here every Friday, and he told Patty, said, well, you told Peter they were moved, and he said, yeah, I was sick and tired of reporters coming to my house and asking to see the documents. The twist in that is I didn't call him and ask to come and see him. I was invited. And when I asked him, I mean, it wasn't like I was going, oh, I'm knocking on his door, let me see the documents. And at that point, he had told me the documents had been moved. So then I did see the pictures of the break-in. Looked like a pretty brutal job breaking in his laundry room. But I went to his house, and, you know, it's an average home, and I don't know if I guess he's renting it. But I pulled around the side, and there's a really great-looking, expensive imported car sitting in the driveway. And he was in there cleaning the pool. There's a pool in the house. And we went in, sat down, like I said, talked. And frankly, I believe the guy.
Why do you believe him? What makes you so certain about this? I mean, you have taken this on with your usual bulldog tenacity.
Yeah,
Why?
First of all, he has nothing to lose.
He really has nothing to gain either.
No, he's been adjudicated. You know, he's wearing the Irish Rolex. You know, he's got the thing around his wrist and around his ankle, and he told the story. It was very much like what we went through with Haggard. That, as you know, male prostitute Mike Jones is watching Jesus television, and here's Ted Haggard putting the mouth on homosexuals, so to speak. And he said, wait a minute, I know that guy. That's art. He's a trick. And he approached us, and we went through the whole deal, went to his house, read the mail, and up in the left-hand corner of the envelope, it said art. As you know, what time he was going to come, what kind of sex he wanted, and what kind of dope he wanted Mike Jones to buy him. It was meth. So we got on the internet, and Haggard's name is Theodore Arthur Haggard. And so on this one, and I take this guy, I think he's true. He's the woman who ran his financial system. They are, quote, laying in bed together, and they're watching TV, and they see Michael Hancock putting a bad mouth on Chris Romer as the strip club mayor for taking the money from Troy Lowry. And he's a John.
Right.
He's a John, yeah.
But that's not proof. You put out the article. You were very clear on Complete Colorado. This is not proof. This is a link. This is something that needs to be looked into. And the media is looking into it left and right. Why didn't they run it when they had it? Why did it fall
well,
to
we know now they made a deal.
What deal?
Well, the Post and Channel 9, their own admission, they made a deal. He kept them at bay by promising them these records. He wins. And then he reneges on his deal on Friday, and the Denver Post then goes with what they had already, which they could have done any time, any point. They had that stuff. And this guy punks them, as the kids say. And then they spend a whole weekend in Randolph and Mortimer's law office, and they're going over all the records, and then they're in the clear, and then they say, okay, come on in, everybody, take a look.
But let me say this. I think there are a lot of good reporters out there that were held back on this. That's my speculation. I think Plunkett.
Name two.
I would say Deborah Sherman.
Okay.
I would say Brian Moss knew a lot about this. I would say
Fallujah,
Heidi Hemmett on 31. I mean, I get a sense there were a lot of people who wanted to run with this. Isn't an editor's job to pull them back and go, listen, you want to run with this story, I can't let you run with it until there is proof. And if there's
we
proof,
know, don't we,
let's
Toddy,
bring it over.
There are other.
Well, you know, there were. It amused me as I watched TV. Well, these TV stations, they took a swipe at me saying, you know, well, we didn't run this story because of the cardinal rule of having two sources. And I guess it's my fault for being unclear that, again, it was the sequence of people how that story got to me that were in essence my other sources, because again, they knew things. It gave me knowledge about my source and the business that even my source didn't know I had. So
but you know,
wait, are there two sources? Is it just?
There's more than two.
Say more.
Well, I mean, there's.
What do you know?
There's.
What do you know?
I know. Well, I know. There's ladies of the evening.
But what they will say to you is, they'll say, well, the source, and again, I've got to be clear about this. I have not revealed who my source is. Other people talk about who their source was, and I made a deal with my source that I would not reveal his or her identity.
And you've been very good about
and I'm
that.
sticking with that.
You've been very good.
But what they will say is, okay, let's take some other news station. They'll say, well, Scotty Ewing is the first person who has the documents and has shown this. But then if the prostitute gives testimony, then they'll say, well, that she was essentially directed to the news station by Scotty Ewing. So in essence, it's the same source. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm fascinated by it because this is your Denver Post that took the word. We never knew their names, never saw their pictures, of two, quote, undocumented job seekers who allegedly worked at Tom Tancredo's house, who went to the Denver Post. Who is it? Undocumented job seekers. We worked on Tom's house. Come on in, let's do a story. And they put that above the fold. We never knew who they were. They never named them. And in fact, the contractor I've spoken to said everybody that came on the job with me had papers, but worked in Tom's house. Tom's in D.C. while the work's taking place. Did that stop the Denver Post? I don't think so. What about what about this McGinnis story?
Well, and
it did stop them.
So, for example, there was a real rush to get that McKenna story, the plagiarism story, online as quickly as they first suspected it. Now, one of the claims of Raleigh Fisher, the assistant, was he was under the impression that some of the writings that he had borrowed, whatever you want to call it, from Justice Hobbs, that those were in the public domain. For example, did the Denver Post investigate that before publishing the sheer fact that they were suspicious that Scott McInnes had plagiarized? And the answer is no, they didn't. I mean,
then let me follow up with the obvious question. You've got 5 different media sources, all of them holding their tongue until you break the story and until Hancock reneges on his vow to the Post and 9 to give the information, and then they get hacked off and they go with it.
But now they're nice boys again. Because
now,
they signed.
By the way, we should make it clear. This is being recorded on Wednesday. Maybe something amazing happened yesterday or the day after. But on Wednesday.
When's this air?
That's what airs on Friday, as you well know.
What time?
At 8:30.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
He's watching HBO. You know it.
I'm down at the Scarlet Ranch.
So. Why do you say they're buddies again? The Post and Hancock. They had 800 pages of phone records,
Look,
thus exonerating
as we speak,
him.
what is this? This is Wednesday. Suddenly, the Hancock campaign and Mortimer and Randolph decide to let
Brownstein Law Firm, for those following at home.
They decide they're going to let everybody in. Well, what happens on Friday? They get the phone records. They don't know what's on the records. So they spend their whole weekend vetting these records. Can't find anything? Hey, boys, come on in. But you had to sign the secret pledge. I know KOA said no and Fox said no. Now, that's like saying to Woodward and Bernstein and Dan Rather and Watergate, Mr. Nixon will allow you certain things, but you have to sign. Rather and Woodward and Bernstein would have told him to put it in his ear.
They were signing. Reporters had to agree that if they were going to follow up
you can't do it.
A story from that, they had to do it in the lawyer's office.
The way Randolph and
and furthermore, you had to essentially show the law firm the information you were looking for in advance. So in other words, you had to say 303, blah, blah, blah. You had to write down the exact phone numbers you were looking for.
In advance.
In advance, which also potentially gives them more ammunition to vet their own records in the future. What if the reporters knew of a phone number that the Hancock team or the lawyers didn't even know of?
By the way, that law firm is also the Post law firm and Channel 9's law firm. Not a problem there. But what I'd like to point out is, and notice 7 wasn't invited, 4 wasn't invited, Fox wasn't invited, and the Deuce wasn't invited, let alone this kid who forgot more than they know.
This sounds like the Boulder, Mary
That's the
Lacey.
Ramses. That's the Ramses. You know, you can come in, but you can't.
Right.
And you have to answer the secret password before you walk in.
Then how can you prove this allegation? Is it provable? How did he connect with the Sugarland Ranch? I kind of like that one. With the
Denver
Players, Sugar. What's the Sugar
Denver
one?
Sugar.
Denver Sugar.
Denver Sugar is the swingers club.
Right.
You know,
and finally, the Denver Club. By the way, I should note, Denver's oldest private club, established in 1884, where we are led to believe that Mayor now Governor Hickenlooper's bathrobe was being worn by one of the working women while she was performing feats of skill. That story never got out.
Your question can't be answered for the simple fact that the story's still, in my opinion, it's still developing and it's still being worked. And I think Deborah Sherman and probably some others are still working angles. I know I am. And so, you know, just in the same way that the Colorado State Patrol wouldn't tell you how they're going to secure a certain area, I am not, and these other reporters aren't going to tell you how we're going forward.
Guys, let me yeah. Devil's advocate. Let me try this one for a second.
Mr. Mephistopheles.
Yeah, let's see what we got. Oh, you wish you could grow a beard. All right. He's been exonerated. Phone records. The cops were asked, "Do you have any surveillance?" There was nothing
but
there.
They weren't surveilling. The cops told you.
His calendar shows there was nothing there.
John, wait a second. What you look for, investigative reporting 101, is the bank records. The bank records, look.
Cash. You can't follow cash.
Sure you can. You can for withdrawals. You can look at ATM withdrawals. You can look at all. On the day before these certain days, 15, 14, 17, did this person pull out $300 cash from his bank or his ATM? That's what you look for. But and Mortimer and Randolph made real sure that nobody was going to find anything in those records. And by the way, if you read the logs, thank you to Toddy, it said Michael works for city, calls from payphone. He didn't use his cell phone to call the working ladies. All that was his VIN number. That was his identification. Hi, this is Michael. Michael, what's your number? Like our talk number, 303-71382. Okay, Peter, where would you like to go? Ellsworth and Lincoln, what time? 2 o'clock. What do you want? $275 worth. You're booked for 2 o'clock.
And there's a flip side.
Phone records mean nothing.
There's a flip side to the phone records, and that is, where the prostitution ring, when they took those phone calls, did they ever take one single phone call from that phone number? So in essence, I think the prostitution ring could provide the same evidence.
Now there's where you want to get the records.
Exactly.
There's two sets of records I want to see. One is his bank statements, his financials. The other was what was on the allegedly stolen goods.
Here are three guys who do not want their backgrounds checked with this much scrutiny.
I don't care.
You know, come on. Here's a guy, if this allegation is true, and I mean, good God, my name would be on that log if only I could afford that type of crime.
If I even knew it was there.
If I even knew it was there. You better not be able to afford it, because I'd be paying you too much. But the point being,
the issue is
why
lying.
is this a deal? Even if it's true,
the issue is lying. The issue is lying. It isn't. Look, I like this guy. I voted for him. He was the first Democrat to walk in the door of KHOW since Noah put the ark in low gear. I mean, and by the way, the Republicans quit walking in as well. So I said, I applauded him, and I said when the story broke, I said, look, Michael, this is 101. I've did so many worse things than that in my life. Stand next to me. I mean, here's two stipulations. One, fire Evan. But two, I'll stand next to you. You could pass this. But don't lie. It isn't, as we all know from the history of whether it's Gary Hart or Richard Nixon, or I get Billy Saul Estes, I mean, I get a list of guys. It isn't the act, it's the cover-up. And the problem now is they're working this, and he's got Evan Dreyer whispering in his ear, who ruined Bill Ritter, who's on his way to ruining Michael Hancock. And the point of it is don't lie. I mean, if you're caught, you're caught. The great lesson for all of us, if you're caught, first day, say, you know what, I did it. It ends the news circle. I mean, the cycle just continues. Now you're going to find out, and I bet you there's guys holding their breath, John, up and down the Front Range, driving those four-door 500 Mercedes and those big Beamers, and they're going,
they're worried about that list.
Yeah, the black book.
But even if he did it, it doesn't make him a less of a mayor.
It's the lion. The
Is
lion.
it just the lion?
Well,
a politician lying.
What it comes
Stop
down to,
the presses.
Oh,
Wait
okay.
a minute.
No, it comes down to there is, and the Denver Police Department has said, well, these are petty offenses, and that
They
may
weren't
be
after
true.
the Johns.
That may be true, but the other side of that is, if you think a law is worth breaking, and you're about to supervise the Denver Police Department, and you think a law is worth breaking, you should say so.
Yeah.
If you think it's worth that, you ought to be able to smoke marijuana, and that is just that's a fine thing to do, and you do it, say so.
Say it.
Right.
You know, in the case of Judge Nottingham, whose life got yanked off the bench, and this was the template. How can you judge somebody because you've broken the law?
This is different than Anthony Weiner in that Weiner, I mean, fine, he did it. He's a politician, but this guy is going to be enforcing the laws.
Well,
Anthony Weiner didn't break
them. He just wrote the laws.
Yeah, he just wrote the laws,
here-
but there's no law against texting naughty pictures of yourself. And thank you for what you sent me the other day. That was really nice.
But lied. He lied.
But how can
Johnny,
you be?
he lied.
He lied.
He lied.
Can he run the police department?
Yeah, I can
if
tell
he
you
breaks
what
the
the
law?
cops tell me. He campaigned on cleaning us up. He can't clean himself up.
How does this unfold? All right, right now, as it stands, he's denied. He's shown the police records. Say we don't have him under surveillance. He's shown his.
But the cops said they didn't have him under
But what happens now? It's a he said, she said. And by the way, you're the she said. Where does it go?
Well, I think Peter can speak probably better to where things go for Michael Hancock, but what I find interesting now is the more we learn about the Denver Police Department and what they did or did not do in terms of surveilling this operation, the evidence they did or did not collect, and how they reached a decision not to prosecute potentially hundreds of people involved in petty offenses. Now, again, they'll go after other quality of life crimes when they want to, and these are, I understand that law enforcement entities have to, they have to partial out their resources, that they're limited by scarcity. But still, why are you surveilling the place in the first place if you're not going to? And that may be. But then again, how this intertwines with the feds? When are the feds finally going to prosecute Brenda Stewart?
In July.
And for those who don't know,
when are we going to get more answers about some of these other documents?
She bought the club.
She bought the club.
All right. Yeah.
And he's been adjudicated. He's $80,000 in 6 months.
He being Scotty.
Scotty. She's facing July 7th. She's sentenced. I think her deal's been cut. Laugh out loud funny. The feds have said, well, we don't want to get involved with this because it might jeopardize the Brenda Stewart case. Oh, come on. Look, I had a guy on a radio show the other day whose entire life was destroyed. Spent 3.5 months in jail. They seized his truck, took pictures of him in cuffs.
Going to a hooker.
No, doing a U-turn, and it was approached by what they call a bait cop, and she went up and started talking dirty in the window to him, and he went, what? And she gave the bus sign, and this poor SOB went to jail. And they treated him like dog dirt. Here are Denver's power elite.
What makes you so certain that it's Denver's power elite? I know you've been. Let me push you on this.
Come on.
No, don't just say come on. I want to know. If you think everybody's so.
I don't think
uptight,
everybody.
If you think there are people in this town
Yes,
that are
I do.
uptight about this blacklist.
Yes, I do.
Have you seen the entire blacklist?
No.
You only saw a bit of it. So who's upset? What have you seen? I mean, right now you might say there's a lot of scared, nervous
Guaranteed.
guys.
Peter's right.
Thank you.
He's right.
Say more. I need more than just he's right.
I can't go.
I know they're
again.
right.
Okay, so one of my other sources that I know has seen the log.
Yeah. And I've talked to that person also.
And they
Trust me.
They know names.
Trust
and
me.
Trust. Yes.
Absolutely.
We're right about
Do you
this.
know
John.
any of the names?
I do.
I'm not so much a high society guy.
That means no.
Neither one of us get invited to those things.
Look, I mean, obviously, I would recognize some athlete names or so forth, but there were names.
This
there
guy
were
ran a casino, John. He told me, he said, I ran a casino. He said, sports teams came in. He said, dealing blackjack, if you gave her $100, she'd deal topless. There was stuff going on.
For 200,
We
I'll deal
already know
topless.
Nottingham.
For $200, I'll put you put the clothes
Nottingham
back
was
on.
high society.
Sure.
You think he's going to go find a middle of the road or a low end prostitution?
And his got
place?
delivered. He got his delivered over to his son's house.
So I mean, you've
All
already got a federal
question.
judge.
We've only got a few
patronizing
minutes
this
left
place.
here. So, is it the blacklist? Is it the little dirty list that is
called the
keeping
Black
this?
Book.
The black book.
Didn't you have one of those in high school?
He has one
No,
now.
I would have had to have a date in order to have
That's right.
a little black
He had a
book.
fantasy book.
It was just your fellow band members'
Yeah, exactly.
phone numbers.
Had everybody in the Star Trek team fan club. All right. Are any of those people spiking this story?
Oh, sure. There's making phone calls. For God's sake, don't publish. For God's sake, don't do this. Of course. I mean, look, John.
Is there any stopping this train?
I think this story's out. Look, what this really proves is how little the Denver Post and the so-called mainstream media count. This was an internet talk radio, alternative media story. Flat, dead, bang. If it was up to the Denver Post and Channel 9, this baby would have never seen the light of day. They were forced into it. They didn't want to do this story. These are their buddies. You know, I mean, look, what this proves is, once again, that there is something called the new medias. It's like watching everything that happened in the Middle East. That all happened on social medias. Mubarak controlled television, newspapers, and radio stations. But this happened on social media. What Todd and I are talking about here happened on new medias, talk radio and the internet. It didn't happen in the hollowed halls of the Denver Post or the bang-up place of Channel 9 on Spear Boulevard. It didn't happen there.
But another point that Peter has made repeatedly on radio, and I think it's a good one, is he always talks about where are the cigar-chomping, whiskey-drinking journalists who would not socialize with these people, and they made it a point not to be their friends.
Didn't like
them. They didn't like him, and they liked it that way.
Exactly.
And I can tell you, that's not the case now. It's much better to be invited to the the politicians.
I'm reading this great book.
Party.
It's about on sports writers in the New York Yankees, my great period with Babe Ruth. There's a story, and they're on the train because they travel by train. And down the aisle of this press train comes a woman in the nude chasing Babe Ruth in the nude. And one reporter looks at her and said, well, there's another story we will not be covering.
All right, 30 seconds. Does this man become mayor?
I was the guy that said Stephanie Villaforte would never become U.S. attorney, and I was right. I don't think he gets the job. I think that there's a special election in November, but hey, I'm more wrong than I'm right.
Over here.
I think he's got better than average odds that he will take office, but I don't see that. I don't see that he can ever really fully get out of this.
Todd, thank you. Incredible story. Peter, thank you.
No, it's Todd.
He made this happen.
Todd made it happen.
Thank you. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. Don't bother with the other station. We'll see you next week.